Well, should we transition to our book of the
Absolutely.
night?
And I think I should shut up and let Double D, because since he's the one that introduced Unfuck Yourself through this, that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, Double D set it up for us.
Well, I mean, I think that's if you go to, is it audibletrial.com /
LWSD.
LSW
LWSD pod.
Get it right.
I still question it.
I think that this was something that this was one of the books that I got from the Audible, and
Awesome. You're
found
the
that
one.
yeah, found that it was. I mean, I first off, it's terrific. It's read by the author, which is spectacular because he's a Scottish born author, and he has just the most spectacular Scottish accent throughout the whole reading. So it's Gary John Bishop who writes it and reads it and performs it. I won't say performs it. He reads it. So there's not a whole lot of performance involved, but it's not that kind of a story either. It's not like it's a story. It's more of just, it's a self-help book. But it's got it's 3.5 hours to listen to, which is short book. It's got some pretty basics. It's not
This long walk, short drink episode is longer than that.
yeah, exactly. I think we're gonna have to throw out that unwritten rule of we can't discuss longer
Right,
than
for
the actual
longer, yeah.
movie or book actually is to
That's right.
read. Which could be a challenge at a mere 3.5 hours. But it's just, I don't know. It was something that was a lot of fun to listen to, just with the accent and just, I don't know, pretty common sense, heavy hitting stuff that's just made a lot of sense to me, and it seemed to be pretty simple, pretty easy to kind of grab onto. I don't know. I've probably listened to it, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 times.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just, and again, it's with it being 3.5 hours, it's a short listen. And it's, I don't know, it's just kind of nice to hear some of those things. And although the title of the book is Unfuck Yourself, I think there's, I don't know, half a dozen swear words in the book, in the entirety.
Yeah,
so it's not something where they just use that, profanity to I don't know.
I called so in my the reason I really I said in a text message that I watched The Bad Times at El Royale instead of reviewing Unfuck Yourself last night. That's really because I still have a hold request out for the audiobook for me to have revisited it. And I know if I would go and just, I almost went to Barnes & Noble and bought a copy today just so I couldn't. And I'm like, you'll never go through it. Like, you'll never crack it open. Why would you do that? So I'm still waiting for the audiobook so I can go through it again. I feel like any of the self-help books that I have gone through in my adult life since I have made that even a goal of mine is to go through self-help books is.
Yeah, like last year you tried to do a number, right?
Yeah, like a certain amount, and that didn't work. And
because though of this point, right? Like you got to
yeah. And it was really like all they really are is affirmation. They're confirming something you already know. I find myself a lot through the books being like, oh, I'm not the only one who thinks that way. Like, all right, okay, and the action piece still, and that's where I feel like the message of this book comes in, is where it's like, you just get out of your head and start doing. And that piece has to come from you. There's no book that's going to tell you how to do it, because how you do it is very personal.
Yeah. And I think for me, like, I read the book, I liked it, and it had this lead up to me from hearing about it from Double D a little bit. And then when you went through your so many books that year, this ended up being the one that you brought to like your favorite things of that year.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I should, I'm interested in it. I should give it look-see or whatever. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, like I picked that one up and I was like, I don't know. I literally said to myself, I'm like, I'm too sensitive for this. I don't want this. So I put it back. And I don't know. I picked this one up. I'm not sure. I don't remember the statement that led me like out of the store with it, but I do know. So just to kind of give a general overview, the book is called Unfuck Yourself by Gary John Bishop, subtitled Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Life. And it's organized around these 7 personal assertions that we can read as maybe a little bit of a guidepost. I don't think we'll need it though, but I wanted to tell you guys like why I wanted to talk about it with you, and then basically use this time selfishly to pick your brains. So one of the things that really caught me in the introduction, it says this is a quote. I like quotes. It says these pages are dedicated to those who experience that self-defeating monologue, the endless stream of doubt and subterfuge that limits and taints everyday life. That caught me. That's something I'm having trouble with. I don't think I've had trouble with it my whole life, but it's become a problem for me recently. And so that was a bit of a hook. And then so he says, well, also there's other thing comes right towards the end. And he says, like, you can become a personal development drone. You know, tons of cool shit, but it's made little or no difference in the trajectory of your life. And I was starting to notice that. Like, I've been working on a lot of things as I've been discovering these problems as I've aged or getting older. And I don't know, I've just been having a harder time being a person, like living life without too much like of a heavy heart or whatever. So I'm working on it, and I do better sometimes than others. And so I've been looking for these tools to help me. I've gone to therapy. I got to a certain point of that. I stopped. I had like realized recently I needed to go back. and when among my first sessions back, I was like, fuck, like I thought I worked through these things. Like I worked my way out of that going there because I was going bi-weekly, and then I went monthly, and then after a couple months of that, I'm like, I think I'm doing okay. I think I came here to have tools and a sounding board to kind of better manage a few things. I felt like I was better managing them, and then took a couple months off, and now I'm back, and it's like I realize it is some of the same core issues it comes back to. Anyway, so but I did notice that I was able to make headway on some things as I applied myself to them and had some time and space to like work through them. And I found reading this book that there were a few things in the way that like it got at it that were helpful to me in terms of like I could latch on to this. But as I mentioned before, like I couldn't tell you a couple days ago what some of the core tenets of this book were. And almost some of the ways that some of the few that I remembered came from like realizing like, oh, Double D kind of has used that language, or he's embodied this principle, and he seems to be doing like, okay, at least in those moments. So like, or at least anyway, so that's why I wanted to talk about it with you guys. So let me that's kind of where I'm coming from and some of what I wanted to get at or out of this conversation. Cause I feel too, like he says something like at the end of the book too, that, don't just read this, think about it, and then go out in your life and do the same shit over and over. Apply it.
Yeah.
And basically saying like the only thing separating you from the life that you want is action. And there's also this interesting dichotomy of the things you think, but then this distinction between you're not what you think and what you do. So
on the here's a great quote. You are not your thoughts. You are your actions. You are what you do. And your actions are the only thing separating you from where you are and where you want to be.
Right.
Page 214 of the book.
Yeah. I remember Double D saying that you're not what you think, you're what you do. I think in the episode 50, maybe, where we're talking to Moto, possibly.
Yeah.
So Double D, you were the first one to kind of talk about this. What drew you to this book?
Well, again, I think it was just something where I think at some point in time, everybody kind of feels like you need maybe a little self-help. I don't, and for whatever reason, and I took some notes, and I think one of the one of the big pieces is um everyone has their problems. Like chapter 4, the I got this chapter or whatever. Um, he says that we only see the highlight reels of others' lives while we're constantly reminded about the behind the scenes of our own. And the behind the scenes of your own lives are the fights you get in with your spouse, are the money issues that you have, are the job concerns that you have, are the stresses that come up, or the losses that you have, the personal losses, or you're going through all of that stuff, and that's what you live with, and that's what you're living in. And yeah, there's positives, and yeah, there's good things that happen too. But when you look outside, all you see is everybody else's highlight reel. Um, so I just don't know that I mean, at some point in time, I would think everybody has to start to question, like, why is my life so screwed up, or what am I doing wrong? Even though everybody else's lives, they're all doing the same thing. It's just that you're only seeing the good things. When you just think about it, like how many times a day do you ask somebody like, "Hey, how's it going?" And 95% of the time, or not, or higher, what is the answer? It's, "Oh, it's great.
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 Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
These are awesome.
Couldn't be better." Really? Couldn't be better. Like, it could be going really well, and it could still be better. So I don't know. And again, I had this amazing free Audible trial subscription.
Autotry.com/LWSD.
Thank you. That I was trying to, just trying to pull something from it. And it's 3.5 hours. It was a short read, or a short listen, if you will. And it just, I don't know why, it just kind of, it kind of spoke to me, and it was, F you asterisk K yourself. Which, and I think that Palmer earlier in the episode was talking about all the self-help books that have swear words in them and all that good stuff, and how that's just some way to kind of pull you in, but it pulled me in. And then I started listening to it, and oh my gosh, I don't know, are we gonna get flagged if we listen to like a 15-second?
No, I don't think so.
No.
All right, so let's take a look. So, and if this doesn't draw you in, like, I don't know, I just thought this was like 6 minutes into the reading here. So
I won't ask you to tell yourself you're a tiger as a way to unleash your inner animal. Firstly, you're not a tiger. And secondly, well, you're not a tiger.
So and I don't know.
That's the first clip I've heard, actually. I read it as the book, and oh man, I can't wait.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. So you're listening to the Scotsman, and he's like, if you're easily offended, just stop now. He's like, re-gift it to somebody who's willing to to buckle down and go through it. And I apologize for butchering the Scottish accent.
That was actually pretty good, I thought.
It's all right. It's good.
But I just love that piece. And my wife who is absolutely just amazing, and has been such a positive influence and help to me in just my day-to-day life. She constantly says, like, don't talk bad about yourself. Like, don't talk negative. And like one of the first chapters, and I take some notes, and I guess I can kind of try to piece through them a little bit, but it's the positive self-talk, whereas your perception is your reality, and that's something that we talk about all the time, is your perception is your reality. It's like when you look at these people that support certain political figures, and you're like, how can this person support that? Well, that's their perception, and that then becomes their reality. So you can't argue logically with this person because they're not using logic. What they perceive is their reality. So when you sit there and you drop something, like whatever, like you drop a bottle cap, or you do something and you're like, oh my God, I'm so clumsy. No, you're not. Like, you're not clumsy. You just dropped the bottle. Like, you changing that perception. It's like retraining your brain one word at a time. Don't say I'm so stupid. And it happens all the time. And you know, 95% of the conversations that you have every day are conversations you have with yourself. And so 95% of your conversations, you're telling yourself you're stupid, you're worthless, you're not. And you may not be saying, I'm stupid.
You can't do this.
You can't
Yeah.
do this. Oh,
Who do you think you are?
Don't do that. Yeah, don't do that.
yeah, this job is so hard. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I'll
You
never,
are so unprepared to do this. Like you are not qualified for this at all. I say
Right.
that every day. I spend so much of my day saying that to myself.
so it's just that, that this is just something where it brings it up.
I'm not living Unfuck Yourself, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to apply, but I'm encouraged by what I experienced over the last year and some other where I got to the point in therapy where like the reason I was there, I was like, I think like I'm feeling okay. Like I feel like now, because the whole idea is like with that or what I was experiencing, like you create new neural pathways. You see
Right.
different ways forward and you can kind of retrain your brain or behavior, if nothing else,
Right.
over time. And that was encouraging to me. And I think that's why some of this really resonated with me as possibilities, but I haven't been able to integrate it very well yet. And I feel like talking to you, Double D, like when you said the thing about like how you doing, a lot of times on the show when we talk to you, you're like loving life, and I'm like, how? And then reading this book, it's a lot of it is just like part of it is you just decide to say that, and so part
Yeah.
of me wonders like, is that you pre this book or post this book or like, I don't know. I just feel like you seem to embody a lot of these practices, and so I'm wondering if you have consciously done that through this, or if it's just helped you kind of remember to do those things that you might be naturally inclined towards.
Probably the latter. But it's like the idea, fake it till you make it. That there's a lot that goes into that. And when people that you talk to that are positive and that have a tendency to be upbeat, for some reason, like quite often you find yourself drawn to those types of people compared to the people that are just like, wah, wah, like
Yeah.
just this constant, buzzkill or downer where they're like, all they do is tell you about all the problems that they have. And that's not to say
Why
that
do I have friends? How do I have friends?
because Dave and I are good people.
Yeah, that's truth.
But I that's what's
Hashtag
sort of
truth.
interesting to me too, Palmer, though, is that I prior to this podcast, I don't think I realized as your friend that you struggled as much as you might with some of these things, because outwardly you projected so much confidence and ease with yourself. Confidence maybe is not the right word, but like I sometimes I don't know why,
who I
but
am.
I think about it like yes,
I think that's
but
my
that is
biggest
so
strength. Like,
appealing.
I know who I am, and I don't care what you think about that, because all I'm doing is satisfying me. It's a very Ash called me, and we were in a fight a couple weeks ago, and she called me a narcissist, and all I could think of was Tony Stark, and I'm like, I'm not Tony Stark. And but then but I am kind of Tony Stark a little bit. Yeah,
that's ways of that though. Like it's people that are self-possessed might be a better word. So sometimes that perhaps can veer toward too much towards one thing. But people who are self-possessed, if you think of a Jack Nicholson or something like that, like
yeah,
you
like
to them-
he got like, man, I see him as the ultimate Palmer. Like he gets paid to be him all the time. If he's in a movie, if he's just like on the red carpet, he gets paid. He's known for being himself. Jack Nicholson's like that. There's a slew of actors that are like that.
And I think a lot of people can be that way. Like when I was active in music, a lot of what I was trying to learn how to do was like be on stage and be comfortable, because if I was comfortable on stage, then the audience would be comfortable. And it was like this whole kind of system that's created. I just saw Booksmart last night, which is a R-rated comedy about two teenage girls. It's like a sort of a modern female Superbad,
Yeah.
the two leads are intoxicating, and they're not traditional sort of movie leads, young women, but they are so self-possessed and support each other to such an extent that you're drawn in. They're the heroes because they see themselves in each other that way. And so
Yeah.
I think in good friendships it can be like that, but and that can play into the highlight reel though. Like you see other people and like how like I'm projecting that on you, Double D, and you, Palmer, like these moments when you are self-possessed, and I feel like, oh, that's so great. I wish I could, feel that way or be that way.
And what's funny is like you find that endearing in me, and those are sometimes the moments that I beat myself up over and over and over again and carry with me and like find the hardest to let go are those moments that where I'm just like, man, you were just a self-serving pompous asshole. And then like people are like, oh man, it's so cool when you did that. And I'm like, man. And then I'm at home just like rocking in a chair like, man, you got to get this shit under control because you're gonna die lonely if you don't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's so conflicting sometimes. Because I'm beating myself up over it, and then people are like, oh no, that's like, I don't see myself as confident at all, I see myself as very like apathetic. Like I just like, yeah, this is just who I am, and I have zero motivation to change it.
That brings up a few things in the book though, and Double D, I know it's hard to find. And you look like you want to say something now, so let you say that before I
continue, because I'm sure I'll just piggyback on you.
But feel like raise your hand, whatever you got to do, because I want to hear from you. But so one of those things. I don't know. I'll read these 7 personal assertions just in case they spark something. I think it's this one actually, Palmer, that I was thinking about. I am willing. So it's this idea of what you're willing to accept, and I think part of that there's stuff in there that's like really really liberating. This idea that and part of what I'm looking for from you guys is things that I can latch onto through how I care. Like, to use Flora Cash, like that song you shared last week.
Yeah.
I don't latch on to new music very well. I need a hook. I need a reason to care, whether it's something I know about the musicians or whether it's something so you offered me a hook into that song that I eventually bought it on iTunes. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
oh man.
Feel like that has a kind of a thing about music that bugs me. But I'm not going to tell you because I don't want you to be bothered by it or even hear it. But I was able to, through you, get a connection to it that now it means something to me too. So that's probably what I want to know selfishly about your experience with some of the ideas in this book. Is personalize it so that I can integrate it into my own life because I like the ideas, but anyway.
So I have up a list of just like the main. So like, I am willing. I'm wired to win. I got this. I embrace the uncertainty. I'm not my thoughts. I am what I do. I'm relentless. I expect nothing and accept everything. These are all like these are the main things the book is trying to get across, right? And Double D like really is touching on the self-talk, as he dubs it, right?
Yeah.
And in keeping this positive thing. I don't know. If I was going to see a counselor, it would be for the skills to change that self-talk, because I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to be doubtful. That doubtful thing is like how I keep searching through this stuff, if I'm doubting how
He's
I
waving.
do that. I know he's waving. Okay. Go ahead.
So it starts right now. It starts, and that's something where and even further down or whatever, it is right now. You have to take 100% responsibility for how you act here going forward.
So
what that is you just said, I don't know how to quit the negative self-talk. Every time you say something negative, just stop. It's just that.
No. I get it. No, I get that. And that's the pieces of this book that speak to you. The ones that speak to me is like, I am what I do.
Yeah, action steps.
This-
That's one of the things.
yeah,
that
action
sparks
steps.
it.
Like this book spoke to me at a point in my life where I realized I was getting enough satisfaction of fantasizing about things I wanted to do. I was getting the satisfaction from those so that I didn't have to do them. And then I was like, well, that's just bullshit. Like that's empty calories emotionally, like that's you got to have some kind of action behind that. And just as I was coming to that epiphany is when this book finally was oh man, I'm sorry, I'm dry. Double D had already recommended this book like, years before. And then
Double D's lips. Sorry.
Just as I was coming to that epiphany is when this book came. I finally got through this book, and I am not my thoughts. I am what I do. Like that's been that has translated into a big piece of the growth that Ash and I have done in our relationship. Like it's put up or shut up. Like you can talk till you're blue in the fucking face, but until you finally do it, that doesn't mean anything, So that really spoke to me. And I am relentless. Like that really got me too. Like don't just keep fucking pushing until you're satisfied, because here's the thing. This is the trick. Only you know when you're satisfied, and the world is not going to just keep trying to satisfy you. Like it's all about path of least resistance, right? So if the world can get by on just like appeasing you, that's what it's going to do. You have to like fight for the satisfaction.
And that whole idea of like you're wired to win, like we will make things true. So if we have negative self-talk and we tell ourselves bad stories about ourselves internally, like we'll find ways to make that true. So if like you're stuck, you're like spinning your wheels, they're like, what? He's like, what are you trying to prove right about that? That what? You're not worthy, or that it doesn't matter if you try, or like those things. Those are kind of interesting. Like this idea that we're wired to win if our minds are set to it. So make sure we set our minds on something we truly want. I thought that was very fascinating.
Yeah, I think, and probably the most important piece, I think that like the other pieces kind of fall into place behind this is that first mindset of I am willing or I am not willing.
Yeah.
So, like with Palmer, if we were to ask you, what are your smoking stats? And whether you have to reinstall that app to figure out that you've saved or you've not spent, how much have you not spent? How many cigarettes have you not smoked?
I haven't smoked 1,800, 201. Wait, no.
That's not 1,000. It's way
more. Shit.
Oh.
I haven't smoked 18,000 cigarettes.
18,000 cigarettes.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Since I quit smoking, I have saved.
How much have you not spent on cigarettes?
$5,400, almost $5,500.
Okay, so like I guess what it comes down to is, and maybe this can help kind of I don't know, maybe you can apply this. 18,000 cigarettes, that's insane. So for all of you people out there, and thankfully I've not been in that situation where I've had to quit smoking. Never took it up. But if you have, and I'm sure Palmer will relate, like take whatever steps you need to take the patch, the gum, the meetings, the whatever.
Read the books. Like
18,000 cigarettes you've not.
And if you failed 14 times at quitting, try the 15th time. And if that doesn't work, go to 16.
So if you look back at that then, because you'd tried quitting before.
Oh yeah, bunch of times.
So
you have no idea how many last cigarettes I smoked.
Right?
Yeah.
What was the piece that you finally were able to tell yourself that you were willing or that you were not willing? Like, how did you quit? Because I know that the gum helps. I know that the that the groups help, but they're not there when it's time to pick up a cigarette, or when you're pumping gas at the gas station. Those people weren't there to keep you from going in and buying that pack of cigarettes. So what is it that you had in your mind that was saying, were you saying, I am not willing to be a 40-year-old smoker. I'm not willing to be or was it I am willing?
I think it was just like I honestly think it was like the biggest thing was I am done with this. Like I'm ready. I'm willing to be done with this. Just get it over with and let's just not do it anymore.
Right.
The joy, I don't know, like the joy meter finally the scale tipped in the other direction. Like it was more fun not to.
Right.
You just finally made the decision for yourself. It was that whole thing.
Yeah.
The willingness to I just don't want this anymore. I literally, like no one could decide it for you.
And
you just decided.
and all the time. And what was so funny was like that time felt different than all those other times where I was like, this is the last cigarette I smoke, So I know it sounds cliche, but I don't know. You would like, there is a mindset too that I am willing. And when you are, you're like, yeah, I'm going to twist off the butts of these like 16 cigarettes. I'm going to twist the butts off of the cigarettes so I can't smoke them.
Cancer merchant.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And throw them away. And I'm just going to do that. And that's okay because I'm done with this, And it felt, I can say, I can still picture that whole thing. It just felt different than the other times where I said this was my last cigarette.
Okay, so and the thing about the thing about this book, Unfuck Yourself, is that there is no, and this is where I think what you were mentioning, this is where all self-help books fall short, is the action steps, is how do you get there? But how can this guy write to you to convince you that was your last cigarette?
Oh no, that's totally my point. Like that's where a good, like, you can't go into a self-help book looking for the solution. You go to a self-help book for affirmation.
There's a line in it too where it's like
confirmation, like
it is. Oh man, I hope I can find it quickly. Shit, but it's something like you can't look for the solution. Basically, the punchline to it is you are the solution. And I have found that to be most true. Like I went to therapy before when I was going through divorce, and it did me no good because I had a terrible attitude. But it's helped me recently because it was all about me. Like I went in there not expecting. I will joke with my therapist. I'll go rattle off shit, and then be like, "All right, fix it." I say it every time. I'll fix it. Yeah. She just laughs because obviously that's not how it works. But I am that variable, like I am the one who can make that change in my life. And I'm the one who's taking control of those sessions to basically use her as a sounding board, as a smart person to be like, tell me, like, what are you hearing from what I'm telling you?
Right.
But in all of those, like, it really comes down to a fundamental willingness to change, I feel like. But it's hard to...
And I've always said
that's the first step, but I think there's a lot of things that can be hard about, like the negative self-talk. You can't just, like with cigarettes, it's physical. Oh shit, there's the timer.
But even with the self-talk though, with cigarettes, like I still say, I tell people who are like, oh, I wish I could quit. You won't until you're ready to. And until you're truly ready, when you're like, this is fucking stupid. Why do I do this? And then you still have a year after that of like debating it before you're going to probably be truly ready. And only you know that. And I think that that's where this book does a great job of acknowledging that. I'm not going to take you to the solution because, again, like you said, you're the solution. Like, I'm going to confirm your thoughts. I'm going to give some, I'm going to define some nebulous concepts that you might be struggling with. That's the other piece that I think self-help books really where you're just like, how do I articulate what I'm feeling right now? And then you hear it and you're like, yes. Yeah, like, that like satisfying, like it's like an orgasm where you're just like, yes, that is exactly what I mean. That's how I would say it. Thank you. Like I felt that a lot when I went through this book.
Yeah, I recognize a lot of that, but I think for me, I think they're even beyond that. Not all of them. They're all just kind of universal truths spun in an interesting way.
Yeah.
And I think with this one, I'm still like, I need to spend that time. There's a couple things toward the end where he's like encouraging you to kind of engage with it more, like we are now. That
I
drew me
have
to this. Like, take the time to make the time. I think he says, like, it's all like cliches, but there's only one quote out of the billions that I think would be worth reading, because I thought about it when you were both talking earlier. It seemed to kind of it's kind of motivating. It's a little like rah-rah, but I don't know. It's a good one to go out on. So towards the end of the book, in the wrap up, he says, if you want your life to be different, you have to make it happen. All of the thinking or meditating or planning or anti-anxiety medication in the world isn't going to improve your life if you're not willing to go out and take action and make changes.
Yeah.
You can't sit around waiting for the right mood to strike or for life to play out the way you want it to, nor can you rely on positive thinking alone to transform things for the better. You have to go out and do. It's a very interesting. There's a lot to get into in this book that we only scratched the surface of. But there's like this whole component about training your mind and the self-talk, but also this idea of like, you're not your thoughts. You have to take action. So it's very worthwhile.
And I think in my revisiting, in my like the little bit that I was able to finally accomplish with the book, it was very, because at first I was like, man, I this book, like you, I'm like, I can't remember one fucking thing from it. And then when I finally did, I was like, man, that's where action steps came from. It was like, stop fucking talking about it and let's do it. Like, what's it going to take to do it? Let's map that out. And I feel like that came from this book. That came from this idea of it's, you can think all you want, but until you do, it's not going to mean anything, And
also that the doing will start to change your thinking. I think that's kind of where that thing comes full circle. And I have experienced a little bit of that. So
I have a quote that I actually wrote a note, like an note for when I was listening to this.
Awesome.
You should dip in and out of it as much as you like. Use this book up. Troll through the words for what you need to make the difference in your life until its pages are tired and weary from your appetite for change. Like,
shit, you did that without knowing you'd read it on a podcast someday?
Yeah.
Oh,
When I went through the audiobook, like I remember replaying that so I could get that quote exactly. Like,
oh, that's awesome.
I'd love
seen you doing gymnastics there.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that there's something to the affirmation of not making these life-changing decisions. Because so often when you quit on a diet, or when you quit on this new workout regime, or when you quit on the spending or the smoking or the drinking or whatever your vice is, or whatever it is that you're trying to get this self-help book through, is there's that downward spiral, right? That depression of, oh, I'm so worthless. I'm so stupid. I don't even know why I try to quit, because I always go back to it anyway. And like, I really feel like this book has an opportunity to talk to you and say, it's okay. You just weren't willing at that time. Like, you tried quitting 14 times. So be it. For 14 times, you weren't ready to quit. You weren't willing to give that up, and be okay with that. Like, it's okay that you don't have 6-pack abs, or like the story of, we all want to be we all want to be a millionaire or whatever, but do you really want to instead of sitting down on the couch with the bride and watching Game of Thrones?
Right.
And are you willing to give up that time to put more time in at the office, an hour and 15 minutes away, so that you
To
can
become a millionaire. Yeah.
to become that millionaire? No, you're not. But then that's okay. But then don't put yourself in that downward spiral of then when you see a Ferrari or something on the road where you're like, man, I wish I had $1 million.
It's so funny because like so much of these things, like as we're talking about it, I'm like, yeah, I really embrace some of this shit. Like I'm just, we are. He's kissing to his beautiful wife. My date tonight is getting a little sleepy.
I've got like notes to go through. Like I'm.
Well, I mean, I'm game.
I have my own notes. So,
All right,
Double
take us
D, burn. No. I don't need them. I have mine. I want to know yours. You don't need mine. Yeah, hit me with yours, please.
All right, I just kind of pulled through, and I went through with the mindset of, okay, this is something like maybe worth talking about, worth discussing. Palmer read through like the list of affirmations. The chapter 2, I am willing, and man, I just think that the rest of the book is based on this. But it's you are 100% responsible for what you do now, and that's like, so if some experience or some tragedy occurs that's out of your hands, the loss of a loved one, losing a job, shuts down, whatever the case is, car accident. Yeah, you may not have had a piece of that, or you may not have been in 100% control of that. But what you are in 100% control of is what you do with that now. So be okay with that and take that on and say, okay, well, I'm going to make the decision to be in charge of this. Every time you add the but, you turn yourself into the victim. Well, I'd like to do it, but just forget that. Like it's okay that you're not willing to do it. Don't say you want to, but well, I'd like to have 6-pack abs, but man, I just can't get out of bed. I just need that 8 hours of sleep. Then go to bed at 9 o'clock so that you can get up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Or be
I
okay
like
with that. You like sleeping in instead of
like that's part
sleeping
of it.
in is more important than 6-pack abs. Like just acknowledge that. Like be like, I would much rather sleep in the morning than have 6-pack abs, and then you can get rid of all that like pressure and effort to divert to other things in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah, those are means to find peace. I recognize that as well. Like, what do you? Because I had trouble with that. Like, what do I really want? I remember the very few moments about that sort of thing. But I used to go. There was this series of concerts here in Northfield, that I really wanted to play. There were like these small, intimate rooms, and I was like, so when I moved here, I'm like trying to get a sense of things. I'm going to all this stuff, but I'm going to all of it in the hopes that I can someday be a part of it, play in front of the audience instead of be a part of the audience. And at a certain point, I was like I don't know how many I went to. I was at one of them, and I was like, I hate this music. I had to leave the bride on the couch. I was just not happy at all. And I just realized, like, I'm not going to do this anymore. This is how you, and that's how it worked for me with the music thing, that I wish I had more peace about that. I feel like I should, because I made those choices very deliberately. Like, I don't want this. I don't want to do this, but I had to accept that not doing this means that. And I don't think that's what I struggle with. That's not like why I'm going to therapy or struggling as much as I am right now. It's not necessarily that, but it's just that's a thing I can quantify, because I realized those choices in the moment as I was making them. I was like, I don't like this. I don't like this Facebook thing of playing this game. Like, I'm not going to do it. I don't want it. I don't care what I think it's going to get me. I don't like it. Right. And those things have repercussions, and I think you have to. So that all made a lot of sense to me. Like this idea of willing, like that whole thing of willing too, like, and being cool with it, like being like, what you just said, the whole thing about sleep or whatever. Like, but the trick of it is like, don't beat yourself up about that element.
Right.
That's hard sometimes, but it's liberating if you can embrace it. It doesn't have to be negative.
Correct. Yeah. No. And that's the whole thing. It doesn't have to be negative. Stay positive. Don't get down on yourself. that you may have eaten an entire pizza after your podcast. So weigh it. Like, it's okay. Like,
Because that's what you wanted to do. God damn it.
do, right? That's
Right.
right. Don't beat yourself up later then and be like, oh man, I cheated on my diet. Forget the diet. Like, you're not willing to do that at this point. Do
Yeah.
what you're willing to do. He wrapped it up like reaching for the stars with short arms. Like you're not really willing to put yourself out there. I'm just gonna try to get to it. So then I'm wired to win for chapter 3 as it goes down through. Your future is not the answer to the problems in the present. I think that's
I like that.
oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
Just that mindset of, don't
Ground yourself.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It all comes back to like, don't make it more than it needs to be. If you're willing to do something, do it for the reason you need to.
Yeah, and you need to address now. Like, be present.
Right.
Solve those problems that are here now so you can get to that future you want. Like that, because that future you want isn't going to fix any of the problems you have now. Like until you do it. Like you got it backwards if you think like, oh, if I was that person, I wouldn't have these problems. No, that person solved those problems. That's
right.
That's what you got to do.
Absolutely. Chapter 4, the I got this. And this one is, I think that this is, and this may come back to what you were talking about before, Dave, when you're like, when I ask you, like, how are you doing? And those kinds of things. Everyone has their problems, right? And if everyone put all their problems into a big pot, most people would be content just taking their own back and leaving.
That's not in the book, but that's excellent.
Oh, that is definitely in the like.
That's not. Maybe I shouldn't seize upon it. I'm glad we're talking about this.
Yeah, check it out. It's the chapter 4.
Okay.
It's where it's, and I don't know if it was Epictetus or whoever.
Epictetus is a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
He's in there quite a few times. Yeah. But it's the it's this idea of yeah, I have problems, of course, but put it into perspective. Like, I mean, right now it's 11:50 East Coast time or whatever. I'm sitting in my home with power, with the means to do a podcast with two amazing individuals from across the state and across the multi-states. We've had
handsome, self-possessed, confident.
Yeah,
we're loving life.
Really, what is it that I'm, what really is going that bad? That I'm gonna be like, oh, woe is me. I had salmon burgers and.
When did America stop being great? Like, where is this great America? Like, where what's the year of marcation? Like that's when it stopped being great, right? Like,
yeah,
same thing.
So how are you doing? I am all things considered, I'm doing wonderfully. Like, I don't have medical expenses. I get up and I have an amazing supportive wife.
I'm a white man. Like,
I'm a white man. Yeah. How bad could that be? Everything else considered, like so just. And then this is also where it talks about, we only see the highlight reels of other people's lives. Well, we're constantly reminded of, oh my gosh, my wife pissed me off, or I can't believe my kids did this, or oh my gosh, I backed into the trash can on my. If only my wife would have brought that in. Yeah, I know.
Fucking dog would go around the block,
or take a dump, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
you're late, for goodness sakes. So, I don't know. I just think that keeping that positivity and reaffirming that to yourself, it's just really important. Embracing on the uncertainty. This was something that, and this is something where when I actually used the book last year, I was struggling quite a bit, and I was trying to figure out the best way to handle a situation would work. And it's the Teddy Roosevelt quote, which I thought is spectacular. In any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing you can do is nothing.
Hmm.
And I had to go way out of my comfort zone. And I reached out to some people. I made some phone calls to some people that, man, I don't know that I would have done just on my own. My wife was exceptionally supportive, and helped me gain that confidence in the uncertain of what could potentially happen. And I'm sure as a result of that, that's kind of what led me to this big promotion.
Really?
right now.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I think that was incredible. And along with like what Palmer said about, that both Dave and I had mentioned that, we found, I don't know, find so attractive or so appealing is, in the same chapter, it talks about abandon the notion that other people's opinions matter.
Yeah.
Be willing to be judged by others. So many times it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to put myself out there. I always relate a story like when I was in high school, my junior year, my freshman, my sophomore year were awful, like just miserable. I felt like I was, as everybody, I would assume most teens do, just kind of feel outside, or you're struggling with who you are. And then I would go to all the after game dances, but I would just stand there because I couldn't dance. And then by the time I realized, like as a junior and a senior, I was like, nobody knows how to dance.
Nobody.
We all dance like, like Elaine, like,
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, but she's the one that's having fun out there. So if other people have a problem with that, that's other people's problems. It's
Right.
not my problem anymore. And so I just was so able
My
to-
jokes are for me. I make my jokes to make me laugh. If anybody else laughs beyond that, it's a bonus.
bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bonus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Be willing to be judged by others. And man, that is just, man, if I can pass nothing else onto my children, I just want to be able to pass that on. Like, don't live your life for other standards. Like, live your own life.
Yeah.
Be okay if people think you're crazy or stupid or nuts or whatever. Like, think of the people that, were looking at the Wright brothers or any number of anything. Anyways, we have to hit this one. Chapter 6 is I'm Not My Thoughts. Changing your mindset, and I wrote this down, and Dave, I hope that you did too. Changing your mindset is like turning a battleship. It takes time.
Oh my God. I don't know if I did. I was like, I don't need to write that. I know that. Oh my God. That is awesome.
Turn the ship around.
That would be one of our first t-shirts if ever we have one.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And that, I don't know, just
Glorious.
having support. If you have that support in place of somebody that can just be okay with you taking that time to turn that battleship, to turn that ship around, right? Negative self-talk, it's something that you've been doing for your whole life and trying to get out of that. Yeah, neuroplasticity and brain research is amazing. And oh my gosh, there's tons of books I could go into about that stuff. But I just that mindset of you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna goof up, but it takes a long time to turn that ship around. It takes more than just like, oh, I'm going to do this now. And tomorrow everything's going to be great. No, it's not tomorrow. It's 2 years from now. Like, you have to be relentless. Be relentless.
And you have to only, I think what I was getting from that too is like, you only have to be focused on the very next step. You can't look to that future as your motivation. It has to be moment by moment. And
let it be a
experience
goal, I feel like, is the message. Like that's not the means to get there. That's your goal. Like that's what you're working for. So what's the next thing to get there? What's the next thing you have to do to get there?
Yep.
Um,
And then, I mean, last, of course, be relentless, and just kind of touched on that, but then expect nothing, accept everything. And I don't know why, and I don't want to crap on millennials. I don't have a lot of experience with a lot of different ones, but
you're a millennial, by the way.
the experience that I have with, I'm not a millennial.
Oh no, you're Gen X, aren't you?
Thank you. Yeah. Don't throw me into that group.
I'm
I'm a millennial,
but I
so.
do not seem to relate to a lot of millennial things. But nonetheless, you're going somewhere, and we can't just discount them.
Yeah, geez.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So the people the millennials that I interact with, and I don't want to stereotype. It's just the expect nothing and accept everything. I just feel like they've got accept, like to
Nothing.
to accept everything, like expect everything. Sorry, not accept nothing.
Expect everything and accept nothing. Like they have it reversed. Like,
they have it completely
nothing is good enough because I want it all. Like
yes, exactly. I should have a job paying $40 an hour. You just graduated high school. You have no experience. You have no training. You have no education. I know, but that's I can't live on $10 an hour.
That's the message. That's the message, though. Is like we live in a world where the wages that you start out at are not enough to live on, though, and they were 10 years ago. They were 20 years ago. They're not now.
You're still living in your parents' basement.
Oh well, yeah. I mean. But still, they're living in their parents'
yeah. We can go. I mean, we can get down. I mean, we can go down that, or even so.
No, I'm saying I'm not trying to argue with you, but I get you.
The idea of expecting everything. Don't expect everything.
Yeah,
we have this conversation with our kids so many times where we're like, "Hey, pick that up," and they're like, "Well, I shouldn't have to pick that up. I picked that up for so and so yesterday. They should pick it up for me." I said, wait a minute. Don't do something because you want something in return.
Right.
Don't expect anything else. Do it because that's like they accepted that from you because you picked up their toys yesterday or you put away their clothes yesterday. They accepted that, and that's great. They can accept that from you. But then don't expect that in return. If you're doing something because you expect something in return, you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Point. Yeah, you missed the point.
Because you can only control yourself. You can't control what somebody else is going to do. Oh, I know, but I stayed late. I helped you with that project. Yeah, thanks for that. I've got a ball game I'm going to tonight.
Deuces.
Yeah, I'm out. Like, don't be disappointed. Don't all of a sudden think like, oh, that's bull. I can't believe that guy did that to me. Why not?
Yeah.
Like, believe that. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Expect nothing, but accept everything. It's just, and that's just that mental mindset of, oh, I guess I do. I mean, I set myself up for failure by thinking that so-and-so is going to do something just because I did something for them. It's just, I don't know. It's so good because if you look at it and can just pull these ideas into your life, and just all it takes is just 2 or 3 things. Like think of the things that you would like your wife to do that they don't do, and then think, how many times have I clearly articulated that I would like that to happen?
Right.
Well, why are you expecting it without just coming out and clearly
just say it? Yeah, communicate.
Yes, just communicate. Like, just come out and say, look,
I had something recently happen with the bride where we got into a substantive argument that was kind of a problem for like more than a day. Like it kind of lingered because it cut a bit deep, but she was just like, if you could have just said, this hurt my feelings, instead of doing this other thing that you did, where essentially I kind of lashed out in a passive aggressive way, even though I didn't necessarily know I was even doing that.
Yeah.
And I caught myself in the moment she said that. I was like, oh, you are totally right.
Yeah.
But recognizing that and articulating that will take a sea change in my brain. And
Yeah.
that's among the things that like why I need this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to turn a ship around.
It does, yeah.
Well, and again, that comes, in my opinion, that comes back to the affirmation part. Like, good self-help books are really going to be like, see, you're not the only one thinking this way, like, and this is all common sense. And that's the message I feel like I'm getting from you too, Double D, is like, this all makes sense. Like, it's all laid out in a very logical path, and this makes sense to me. And I think that, any logical person is going to read this and be like, yeah. But I think having it written in a book that somebody got published, and maybe this is the part for like the personal part for me, like that's like, okay, well then that validates my thoughts, and so now I can move on. I can do all these things that the book talks about because it's been validated, because somebody actually was able to like make a living off of the same thoughts that I'm having,
Yeah. That's what I like about most of the art that I hold dear, is like it validates my experience in some way. It makes me feel less alone. I like a lot of like kind of or very dark art, but
Yeah.
it has a positive effect on me. One of the nicest things I ever heard about my own music was someone a secondhand relayed comment was something like, "Oh, he says the same thing I think or feel. I just didn't necessarily have those words to say it." And I was like, "Oh man, that's great! Like that's all I want." And the other and anything really, it's just to know that I'm not alone and to help kind of commiserate and then kind of contextualize my own experience. And this has been very helpful in that regard. Talking about this with you guys. Thank you.